Hi, good morning to all of you. So, welcome back. We were discussing about world history, clear, and in world history we had discussed till the end of the First World War. In we had also discussed elaborately about the Paris Peace Conference and the major treaties which were concluded in Paris Peace Conference that even led to redrawal of the national boundaries. We also discussed about one revolution that took place in the midst of the First World War, that was the Russian Revolution of 1917. Clear. At the same time, we also began to discuss about developments in interwar years, and in this we had discussed that the most important development was growth and development of an aggressive nationalism known as fascist ideology, and this ideology emerged in interwar years in three major countries of the world, that is Italy, Germany and Japan. Clear. And first major country to promote fascist ideology or aggressive nationalism was Italy, and we had discussed the reason because Italy was not properly rewarded for its neutrality in Paris Peace Conference, and therefore Italian President Orlando left the conference midway, and therefore this sense of aggressive ideology began to be promoted by a group of military soldiers in Italy led by Benito Mussolini that marked the beginning of fascist ideology, the term fascism being originating from Latin word fascio, which means bundle of rods. Clear? When this ideology of fascism began to be promoted in Italy, it began to be marked by three distinctive features. The first major feature is ultra-nationalism, second major feature is protection of private property, and third distinctive feature is strong and aggressive foreign policy. Clear? How these began to be exhibited in Italy under Benito Mussolini will come to the major growth of fascist ideology in Italy. Clear? Till this point we had discussed. Clear? We'll continue from here. Meanwhile, we have a question. Clear? From Parth. Sir, instead of Britain, why socialist revolution first happened in Russia? See, again I'll let you know. Clear? Ideology of socialism began to emerge in Britain as a consequence of industrial revolution. But we had also made it clear that that ideology of socialism in Britain was basically bookish in nature, utopian in nature. In fact, those socialists were criticized by Karl Marx as utopian socialists because none of them could have much impact on the capitalist class. That is why when Karl Marx advocated his scientific socialism, he advocated that not through convincing the capitalist class but through proletariat revolution only equal distribution of resources can take place. And that is why he explained this phenomena through scientific socialism, also known as Marxism. So even though socialism started as a consequence of industrialization in Britain, this could not have much impact on the capitalist class, and therefore revolutionary development could not take place. Such revolution took place when Russians adopted socialism given by Karl Marx. Clear? And that resulted into socialist revolution in Russia in 1917. Is that clear part that why Britain could not witness socialist revolution like Russia? Is that clear? Okay, now let us move to the growth and development of fascist ideology in Italy or fascism in Italy. Clear? We'll understand about this ideology. We had discussed the three distinctive features, that is growth and development of aggressive nationalism, protection of private property, as well as strong and aggressive foreign policy. Clear? Let us discuss about the exhibition of this ideology in course of time. Clear? Now just understand first of all. Clear? When Benito Mussolini began to promote aggressive nationalism or fascism, he promoted the sense of fascist ideology or ultra-nationalism and made it clear that since Italian pride has been affected in Paris Peace Conference, no, Italy will look only for its own national interest even at the cost of the interest of other nations. Clear? And this marked the beginning of ultra-nationalism. In order to show protection towards private property, Italy or Benito Mussolini promoted the concept of corporate state in Italy. Now, what do we mean by corporate state in Italy? We'll understand the corporate state theory of Benito Mussolini. Clear? So, corporate state theory. Corporate state theory given by Benito Mussolini. Clear? Next question, sir. Can we say that the First World War is a trigger? Yeah, obviously, First World War can be considered as a trigger also to some extent, because obviously it triggered several developments all across the world. So, First World War was a major trigger that led to cascading effect all across the world history. It's clear. Now, coming to the corporate state theory for protection of private property. Clear? Benito Mussolini wanted the protection of private property, and in order to protect private property, Benito Mussolini realized that there should be a kind of corporate state established in Italy. In order to establish corporate state, Benito Mussolini began to promote complete cooperation among the working class as well as among the capitalist class. Clear? And he began to advocate that there should be establishment of syndicates. Syndicates means groups of workers and capitalist class coming together so that with their complete cooperation and trust, economic growth and development could be promoted and huge resources could be brought under the command of the state. Clear? Because through corporate state theory only, Mussolini wanted to make Italy a totalitarian state, that is a complete state. So through fascist ideology, Benito Mussolini wanted to establish a totalitarian state. In fact, fascism always believes in establishment of a complete dominating state known as totalitarian state. That is why fascism is totally opposed to the ideology of communism, because ideology of communism prescribes a stateless society. Clear? So totalitarian state and communism are totally antithesis to each other. Clear? And that is why, clear, again I'll let you know that all fascist ideology was totally opposed to communist ideology. In fact, for Hitler, the biggest threat was the Soviet Union, because that supported communist philosophy. Clear? So fascist ideology is completely opposed to communist ideology, as fascism believes in establishment of totalitarian state and communism believes in establishment of a stateless society. Clear? This was to be promoted by huge cooperation between the workers and the capitalist class through the formation of syndicates, and this corporate state resulted into rapid production growth of Italy, and all those resources came under the command of state, leading to the protection of private property as well as establishment of a totalitarian state. This was a great move by Benito Mussolini. Clear? At the same time, Benito Mussolini, in order to legitimize his position, he also concluded an agreement with Pope at Rome, as was concluded by Napoleon Bonaparte. Clear? This agreement, which was signed between Benito Mussolini and Pope at Rome, it's also known as Lateran Treaty. Clear? Through Lateran Treaty signed in the year 1929, Pope was accepted to be the spiritual head of Christianity, and in turn Pope accepted Mussolini to be legitimate ruler of France, legitimate ruler of Italy. So like Napoleon Bonaparte, Mussolini became the next leader in world history to make effective use of religion to legitimize his political position. Clear? This development took place again in Italy. At the same time, Mussolini began to pursue aggressive foreign policy, which is the third component of fascist ideology. Clear? First of all, Mussolini wanted to revive the lost confidence of the Italians. Clear? Now, we had discussed earlier that Italy joined the Triple Alliance with Germany just because Italy was assured by Germany of its expansion in African continent. Clear? Italy wanted to establish control over African continent and in 1896 Italy had attacked the country of Abyssinia, modern Ethiopia. Clear? However, Ethiopians defeated the Italian forces in the Battle of Adowa in 1896. Clear? Since Italians were defeated by Abyssinians in 1896, this adversely affected the confidence and prestige of Italians. And in order to revive the confidence of Italians, Mussolini again attacked Abyssinia or Ethiopia in 1937. Clear? Even though Abyssinia was conquered by Italy and Abyssinians appealed to the League of Nations for action against Italy, Italy walked away from the League of Nations in 1937. That marked the complete collapse of collective security, and therefore several scholars believe that Second World War started in 1937 only. Clear? Because before Italy, Japan and Germany had already walked away from the League of Nations. Clear? These developments took place in Italy, and Italy must to be a very powerful country between two world wars, and in the course of Second World War, Italy attacked one another African country, that is Libya, and Libya and Ethiopia became colonies of Italy in African continent. So a strong foreign policy was also exhibited by Benito Mussolini. So three major features got exhibited clearly: ultra-nationalism, a strong foreign policy, as well as protection of private property. We'll write about these developments in Italy. Clear? Right. The fascist ideology in Italy, the fascist ideology in Italy was strongly advocated by Benito Mussolini, strongly exhibited by Benito Mussolini, who promoted ultra-nationalism, to satisfy the pride of Italians, to satisfy the pride of Italians, satisfy the pride of Italians, pride of Italians, satisfy the pride of Italians. Italians, clear? Pride of Italians. Italians. Pride of Italians. Clear? Right. Right. Beside Mussolini also attempted towards protection of private property, protection of private property, attempted towards protection of private property through the corporate state theory. Clear? Right. According to this theory, he created the syndicates or groups. Of workers and industrialists, to enhance economic growth and production. Clear? Right. Such syndicates led to healthy collaboration. And promoted rapid economic growth Clear? Right. This facilitated the establishment of all powerful state, or totalitarian state, all-powerful state or totalitarian state or totalitarian state, totalitarian state, right here only. It must be noted, it must be noted, noted, it must be noted that totalitarian state is completely opposed to, is completely opposed to communism, completely opposed to communism that prescribes, that prescribes a stateless society, that prescribes a stateless society. Be very clear in concept. So communism prescribes a stateless society and fascism prescribes a totalitarian state, that is all-powerful state. That is why fascism and communism are totally opposed to each other. That is why for Hitler, the most important enemy was Soviet Union, not United States or Britain. Clear? So fascism leads to totalitarian state, communism leads to stateless society, and both are antithesis to each other, totally opposed to each other. Clear? This development took place and therefore it resulted into a totalitarian state by protection of private property. Clear? Change paragraph. Clear? Right. Mussolini adopted a strong foreign policy. Mussolini adopted a strong foreign policy, a strong foreign policy in order to revive the confidence, in order to revive the confidence of Italians, confidence of Italians, clear? Italians, right? The Italian forces were defeated. The Italian forces were defeated by Abyssinians. The Italian forces were defeated by Abyssinians, Ethiopians. Clear? Italian forces were defeated by Abyssinians or Ethiopians. Abyssinians or Ethiopians, eastern part of Africa. We'll show in the map also. Clear? Abyssinians or Ethiopians in the Battle of Adowa. In the Battle of Adowa in 1896. In the Battle of Adowa in 1896. In 1896, which affected Italian pride. Which affected Italian pride. Which affected Italian pride. Italian pride. Okay? Now just understand first of all. We'll look into this. Italian pride. Abyssinia. See, you'll understand with this. This is Abyssinia, Ethiopia, clear? And this was attacked at this time by Italians led by Benito Mussolini, Ethiopia, clear? And if you look into this, it's not far away from Italy. So it was attacked in 1896, but Abyssinians or Ethiopians defeated the Italian forces in Battle of Adowa. Right, next paragraph, clear? Right, Mussolini attacked Abyssinia, modern Ethiopia. Mussolini attacked Abyssinia In 1937, 1937, 37, and annexed annexed this African country, annexed this African country. Okay? Right, next, Abyssinia appealed to the League of Nations. Abyssinia appealed to the League of Nations. League of Nations. But before any action could be taken, Italy walked away. Italy walked away from the League of Nations. Italy walked away from the League of Nations, which marked the collapse of collective security, which marked the collapse of collective security in 1937. 1937, clear? Right, therefore, some scholars are of opinion, that the Second World War started, in 1937 itself. Started in 1937 itself. Even though it is started in 1939, but many scholars believe because it was collapse of collective security because of Italy, because Japan and Germany had already walked away. So, three major dimensions reflected of fascism. One is ultranationalism, second is protection of private property, and third is the strong foreign policy. And do remember this concept that totalitarian state is the outcome of fascism, and therefore it is totally opposed to communism that leads to establishment of stateless society. Both are antithesis to each other. Clear? Now, just after this, clear? So, these were major developments and growth of fascism in Italy during interwar years, that is from 1919 till 1939, when Second World War broke out. Clear? At the same time, we'll look into the developments of fascist ideology in Germany and what major developments took place in Germany in interwar years, as Germany proved to be the most aggressive country that led to Second World War in 1939. So we'll look into growth and development of major events in Germany during interwar years. Clear? Right, we'll just understand this. Clear? Right, separated in clear. Right, growth of ultranationalism in Germany. Growth of ultranationalism in Germany. Ultranationalism in Germany. Now just understand here. Don't write anything, just understand first of all. Clear? See, as soon as the First World War came to an end and Paris Peace Conference was convened, we all know that during Paris Peace Conference, France tried to punish Germany as harshly as possible, and that resulted into imposition of a humiliating treaty on Germany known as the Treaty of Versailles. And we had discussed that all the provisions of Treaty of Versailles tried to paralyze Germany completely. That is, sovereignty of Germany was affected. Germany was affected politically, militarily, economically, and above all, financially, because huge war indemnity was imposed upon Germany by the Allied powers or the victorious powers. Clear? That is why when all these developments began to take place, radical developments were witnessed in Germany during interwar years. Now, from the beginning, we'll understand. As soon as Paris Peace Conference was convened, the Allied or victorious powers realized that Germany may fall into chaos and anarchy, and therefore collection of indemnity indemnity amount will become impossible. That is why the Allied or the victorious powers, they decided to maintain law and order in Germany, and with such intention, they drafted a constitution for Germany in 1919. This constitution of Germany is known as the Weimar Constitution. Clear? So even now the constitution of Germany is termed as the Weimar Constitution, as it was drafted at a place known as Weimar in Germany. Clear? So Weimar Constitution was drafted in Germany at this time. Clear? Apart from this, clear, the Weimar Constitution provided for establishment of the Weimar Constitution provided for the Weimar Constitution provided for the post of the head of the state known as the President of Germany, and the post of the head of the German Parliament known as the Chancellor. Clear? So Germany from here had two important posts at the top. One was the post of President, another was the post of Chancellor or the head of German Parliament. Clear? This was decided to maintain law and order so that Germany can pay indemnity amount, especially to two affected countries, France and Belgium. With Weimar Constitution, Germany started to pay indemnity amount, but after few years, only by 1923, Germany realized it cannot continue the payment of indemnity amount because obviously it was beyond reach. Clear? In 1923, Germany refused to pay indemnity amount, and thereafter only France and Belgium decided to attack Germany. This could have disturbed the peace and stability once again, and United States intervened. United States constituted an expert committee, clear, in order to prevent Germany from further crisis, clear. And at this time, United States constituted an expert committee under a Geneva expert known as Charles Darwin. Clear? He gave his proposals in 1924, which are known as Darwin's plan. Clear? We'll come to discuss what exactly was in Darwin's plan, which was a plan to resolve the financial crisis or the payment crisis related to Germany. Clear? Right, first, clear? Right, after the First World War, the victorious powers, especially France and Belgium, the victorious powers, especially France and Belgium, the victorious powers, especially France and Belgium, especially France and Belgium. The victorious powers, especially France and Belgium, especially France and Belgium, especially France and Belgium, especially France and Belgium, France and Belgium decided to collect huge indemnity amount, huge indemnity amount from Germany. Now this is France, this is Belgium. Clear? Adjoining countries which were attacked by Germany. France and Belgium decided to collect huge indemnity amount from Germany. Clear? Germany. Right, in order to prevent any major crisis in Germany, the Allied or victorious powers, drafted a constitution for Germany, known as the Weimar Constitution, known as a Weimar Constitution. known as the Weimar Constitution. Clear? Right. This constitution provided for the post of this constitution provided for the post of president as the head of state, president as the head of state, and the chancellor as the head of parliament, as the head of parliament, clear? Head of parliament, clear? Head of parliament, right? With such mechanism, law and order was maintained in Germany. Law and order was maintained in Germany. And it started to pay the indemnity amount. It started to pay the indemnity amount. It started to pay the indemnity amount. Clear? Right. However, by 1923, Germany realized that further payment cannot be made. Further payment cannot be made. And consequently, France and Belgium decided to attack Germany. France and Belgium decided to attack Germany. Okay. Right. In order to resolve this crisis, United States intervened. And constituted an expert committee under a financial expert, Charles Dawes. Under a financial expert, Charles Dawes. Clear? Charles Dawes. Right. Right. This committee proposed a plan. Popularly known as the Dawes Plan. In 1924, Dawes Plan in 1924, whereby the indemnity amount was to be paid. Through annual installments. Paid through annual installments, spread over a period of 50 years. Long time. Small installments could be paid, spread over a period of 50 years. Clear? Right. Moreover, this plan proposed Plan proposed that this plan proposed that United States should provide financial and technical support to Germany, financial and technical support to Germany, to pay the to pay indemnity amount, to pay indemnity amount. Clear? Right. Right. Consequently, United States began to support Germany, and annual installments began to be paid, clear? Began to pay, right? However, just after 5 years, just after 5 years, United States faced the Great Economic Depression. United States faced the Great Economic Depression. In 1929, Economic Depression 1929, and it became impossible for United States to support Germany. Clear? Germany. Like due to such development, Germans decided to support. A radical leader decided to support. Adolf Hitler, as all measures had been exhausted. No choice left. As all measures had been exhausted. No choice was left than to support ultra-radical leader Adolf Hitler. Measures had been exhausted. That is why we had discussed that Great Economic Depression led to the rise of Hitler. Clear? So yesterday only Suwashis has asked how Hitler emerged from Great Economic Depression. We'll see. Clear? That when Great Economic Depression came and United States also refused to support Germany, Germany again plunged into crisis. Hitler came to the rescue and said the only possible option left for Germany is to tear apart the Treaty of Versailles clause by clause. Clear? Until this treaty is abolished altogether, Germany cannot rise as a powerful state. Germans also realized that since all measures had been exhausted, they ultimately decided to support Adolf Hitler. And from here, Hitler began to witness his rise in career in Germany. Clear? So, Great Economic Depression largely facilitated the rise of Adolf Hitler. Is that clear, Suwasi, that you asked me yesterday? Clear? So this was the factor that led to rise of Hitler. Before we come to the rise of Hitler during Great Economic Depression, we look into the rise of Hitler as a major soldier before this also. Clear? As Hitler participated even in the First World War and even went into prison as well. We'll come to the career of Adolf Hitler. Clear? Before we start the career of Adolf Hitler, we'll just understand we'll take some questions here. Clear? Sir, please clarify how rapid economic growth leads to establishment of a totalitarian state. Clear? Just understand how rapid economic growth leads to establishment of totalitarian state. I'll explain you through a very important concept as well. Just understand first. Clear? We need to understand one thing. We had discussed about an ideology known as the ideology of socialism. And we had discussed that according to this ideology, the resources of a nation or a country must be owned and controlled by the government, the state, and state should organize the economic system in such a manner that there is no concentration of wealth and all the resources get confined to the state. And in course of time, state will ensure proper distribution of resources for equality. We had discussed clear socialism. From this ideology of socialism only, two ideologies emerges. The mother of the two ideologies is socialism. One ideology that emerges from socialism, this is the ideology of communism. Clear? Just understand conceptually clearly communism, whereby as we had discussed, socialism is not an end itself, it is just a means. The end is basically the communist ideology, which is the highest stage of socialism. When a state acquires so much of resources, clear, a time will come that state will come to an end, because resources will get distributed equitably among all sections, and that will lead to establishment of a classless society and a stateless society. So communism prescribes the establishment of a stateless society, clear, whereby every section would be satisfied with the amount of resources he has, and it will lead to an ideal society known as a stateless society and the classless society. So if socialism takes its ideal route, it will ultimately culminate into communism. But the reality is clear, no country in the world till date has been converted from socialism to communism, because no country can ideologically claim itself to a communist country, because every country has got a functioning government. Clear? So not even China, not even Russia, Cuba, Venezuela, any other country. Clear? Because all the countries has got a functioning government, so none of them can ideologically claim itself to be communist country. Clear? At the same time, socialism gives birth to another ideology, and this ideology is known as fascism. Clear? In fact, fascism also emerges from socialist ideology only. Why? Because obviously all fascist leaders, they claim that they want to make a state all powerful, so that state will distribute the resources equitably among all the sections of society. Clear? So obviously all the sections contribute towards conversion of state into a powerful entity, so that with powerful entity the state will distribute the economic resources equitably, and after state distributed equal resources, a state will come to an end and it will lead to communism. But rather than, after taking all the resources under control, rather than distributing the resources among masses, the state becomes all powerful, the state becomes paramount. Clear? So obviously it is a half-baked process of socialism. If it is properly baked, it will lead to communism. If it is half-baked, it will end up with fascism. Clear? Since all the resources has been surrendered by people to the state, with this expectation that state will distribute the resources equitably among them, but at the same time state does not distribute the resources, rather get all the resources confined among itself, it results into a totalitarian state. Results into a totalitarian state. Clear? So obviously fascism results into totalitarian state, and totalitarian state is basically means all powerful state, which is totally opposed to stateless concept. Clear? Therefore, even though communism and fascism are siblings, because they emerge from common ideology of socialism, both are diametrically opposed to each other, because communism prescribes a stateless concept, fascism prescribes a totalitarian state. Be very clear in concept, it's very important. Is it clear, Parth? Sir, please clarify how rapid economic growth leads to establishment of totalitarian state. That is why fascism prescribes protection of private property, because obviously this private property will come under the command of state. Clear? So state and private holders will dominate the whole society rather than masses. Clear? So socialism, if it takes its ideal route, it will end up with communism. If it takes the half-baked process, it will end up with fascism or dictatorship. Is clear? So what is meant by stateless society? Vishwajit, stateless society means that society which is managed by the communities themselves, rather than having a superstructure like state, legislature, executive, judiciary. No, a stateless society means that there would be governance done by the people themselves, by the community themselves, rather than by having a superstructure. Clear? This is known as a stateless society, that is society managed by the people themselves voluntarily, not by any superstructure. It's clear. This concept is clear. Okay, now coming to Hitler, clear? So first of all, we'll discuss about the rise of Hitler. Just understand, clear? Adolf Hitler originally belonged to Austria. So he was an Austrian, not German, clear? Adolf Hitler participated on behalf of Germany in the First World War. But while he participated in First World War, he came to know that one community has betrayed Germany and has provided all information to Allied powers that resulted into defeat of Germany. This religious community was that of Jewish community. So Hitler had strong apprehension towards the Jewish community because he realized this community has ditched or rather betrayed Germany in First World War. Clear? When First World War came to an end, Hitler established his own political party known as National Socialist Democratic Party. Clear? This party in short was known as the Nazi Party. Clear? Initially this party had only 7 members, and with these 7 members only, Hitler tried to usurp power. USURP tried to acquire power forcefully, but with 7 members it was practically not possible. So Hitler was arrested and placed in Bavaria jail, prison. He remained in prison for 5 years, clear, from 1919 till 1924. In this period of 5 years behind prison, he wrote his own autobiography. This biography is titled as Mein Kampf. The English version of this autobiography is My Struggle. And in this work, My Struggle, Hitler highlighted his approach, his objective, and his strategy towards Germany to make it a powerful nation state. We'll come to his approach and strategy towards Germany, which is mentioned in his autobiography, Mein Kampf or My Struggle. Clear? Right, introduction. Right, next paragraph. Clear? Right, Adolf Hitler was originally an Austrian. Originally an Austrian. Originally an Austrian. Originally an Austrian who participated in the First World War, on behalf of Germany, Germany, clear? Right, in the First World War, Hitler realized that the members of the Jewish community has betrayed Germany. Members of Jewish community has betrayed Germany by providing all informations to the Allied powers. Okay? Right. Therefore, Hitler was totally opposed to the Jewish community, Clear? Totally opposed to the Jewish community. Change paragraph. Clear? That after the end of the First World War, Hitler established, see the word socialist is here as well. Hitler established a political party. Known as political party known as the National Socialist Democratic Party. The National Socialist Democratic Party, popularly known as the Nazi Party, popularly known as the Nazi Party. Swastik sign was the symbol of this party. Clear? Popularly known as the Nazi Party. I'll show you. Popularly known as the Nazi Party. Popularly known as the Nazi Party. See, Nazi Party. Clear? Popularly known as the Nazi Party. Clear? Known as the Nazi Party. That is swastik sign, popularly known as the Nazi Party. Right? Initially, this party had 7 members. This party had 7 members. 7 members. And with their support, Hitler tried to usurp power, acquire power. Hitler tried to usurp power. USURP tried to usurp power. Right. However, he was arrested and imprisoned. He was arrested and imprisoned in the Bavaria jail, Bavaria, and imprisoned in the Bavaria jail for 5 years. Bavaria jail for 5 years. 5 years. Clear? Right. During his imprisonment, Hitler wrote his autobiography. Titled as Mein Kampf, Meinkampf. His autobiography, Mein Kampf, which in English means, it's a German language, which in English means my struggle. Which in English language means my struggle. My struggle. Clear? Right. In this work, Hitler highlighted his approach and strategy. Hitler highlighted his approach and strategy. Towards Germany. We'll come to this. Clear? Before we come to the developments that led to the establishment of strong German state fascist power, we'll discuss about the major developments written in Mein Kampf, my struggle only. Everything was written in his autobiography. Clear? Now, before this, we'll take some questions. Clear? First of all, so what is the difference between Hitler's Nazism and Mussolini's fascism? We'll come to that, don't worry. Clear? Nazism is a variant of fascism. Nazism. But why do we use the term Nazism? Because it was promoted by Nazi members, clear? Nazi Germany. That is why it's known as Nazism. And there was one additional component from fascism, clear? We'll come to that component as well. That is why it is known as variant form of fascism or Nazism. We'll come to that, Madan, clear? Next is, sir, we can say Putin, Jinping, Kim Jong, all are fascist leaders, Vishwajit, clear? See, I can let you know, clear? Fascism is not acceptable in contemporary times because fascism is considered to be against world peace and security. Obviously, you cannot promote world peace and security in collaboration with fascist ideology or extreme nationalism, clear? They are, all these leaders like Putin, Jinping, Kim Jong-un, all these leaders are aggressive leaders, there's no doubt about it. But they are not termed as fascist leaders. Obviously, fascism is a term not acceptable in contemporary politics because it goes against world peace and security, clear? In fact, all of them are considered to be moving towards fascism, clear? So they're tilted towards fascist ideology, not fascism as such, clear? In fact, Putin has been declared to be a fascist leader when he annexed Crimea, clear? Jinping, just because China follow authoritarian government, and Kim Jong-un, that is of North Korea, because he also considered to be a dictator. So all of them are dictators. They are moving towards fascism. They are tilted towards fascism, but they are not fascism as such, fascist as such, clear? This is the one thing. So fascism is not acceptable in contemporary global politics. Next question is from Anil Kumar Roy, clear? So why is not it possible for any communist government to establish 100% socialist idea in a state machinery and economy and society? How does socialist idea affect the society and economy order in global context? So why is not it possible for any communist government to establish 100% socialist idea in a state machinery and economy and society? See, I'll let you know, clear? It is not possible for any communist regime, first of all, to come into existence and to follow 100% socialist idea. If there's 100% socialist idea, it will obviously be highest stage of socialism leading to communism, clear? But at the same time, it can only be established when resources get distributed equitably among all the sections of society. When resources get distributed equitably among all the sections of society, clear? Obviously, it will lead to establishment of ideal society, and there won't be any need for regulatory state, clear? And therefore, regulatory state would automatically come to an or rather wither away. But no state wants to come to an end, clear? And since no state wants to come to an end, they don't follow 100% socialist ideology. Rather, they keep large amount of resources confined to themselves, clear? And why it is not possible? Because a state claim that in case of any natural calamity, in case of any problem, a state will come to the rescue of the people. So a state needs to give certain amount of resources as a surplus resource or as a reserve amount in order to deal with any calamity, clear? Just because calamities are obviously inevitable, it has to happen. State also becomes mandatory in nature, and therefore all the countries state do exist as a medium or as agency to deal with some extraordinary circumstances. That is why people are also content with the establishment of state, because they knew alone they cannot deal with any calamity that may happen, and obviously the state will ensure this calamity. So some amount of resources remain confined to state, and therefore state is not able to establish 100% socialist phenomena in any country, clear? So obviously it's not possible to establish 100% socialist idea by any communist government or any government, clear? Now, how does socialist idea affect the society and economy order in global context, clear? Obviously in global context, some countries claim it to be socialist country because in right now as of presently, all socialist countries are those countries that have command economy, controlled economy, clear? Since they have controlled economy, they don't, or they have hesitation integrating with global order, and that is why it affects globalization, it affects global trade, it even affects global cooperation, clear? So socialist ideology affect global order in the sense that economy cannot get integrated properly in globalized world, and that affect the cooperation among major powers. This is the effect of socialist idea. Next is Jewish means Israel, sir, clear? Initially it was not Israel, clear? But later on Israel was created as a country exclusively for Jewish community when Germany was defeated, clear? Because Jews began to demand their homeland, and this homeland was created within Palestine as Israel in 1948, clear? So Jewish means community, Israel means country, clear? Next is, sir, neither a stateless society nor a totalitarian society is good a country. So, was there any ideology having characteristics of both communism and fascism? Nimai, clear? There are, in fact, in reality also, clear? The most major countries are basically the group countries having both communism and fascism. Some features of communism, some features of fascism. Largely, few features of fascism, that is protection of private property, strong foreign policy. These are followed by any country. So, obviously, when you follow strong foreign policy, you are not fascist, but you are promoting your national interest. When there's a protection of private property, it means tilted towards capitalism. Clear? Communism means having existence of state. Clear? Social state. A state will ensure the proper distribution of resources. So obviously, most of the country like India also having mixed economy, whereby we follow some features of fascism, some features of socialism, and therefore it results into a midway in major countries. So obviously, most of the countries follow the characteristics of communism, some characteristics of fascism. Next question is Nayan. Is it true that Jews had betrayed Germany in First World War, or it was just used by Hitler to rise in power? Clear? See, not the whole community betrayed Germany, but some of them provided all information to Allied powers. How do we say? We have a proof for this. We have a proof because the reason is that in 1917 only, British officer named as Lord Balfour. Clear? Lord Balfour issued a declaration that in coming time, they will create a separate homeland for Jewish community. Way back when First World War was going on. Clear? And it was said that he gave this declaration on the demand of Jewish community because Jews provided all support to the Allied powers. That is why Allied powers like Britain decided to create a new country for Jewish community. And therefore, what major support was given by Jewish community? Jews being confined in Germany, they provided all sensitive information to Allied powers. Clear? So some of them betrayed Germany, but most of them remained loyal to Germany also, and this facilitated Hitler to demean the Jewish community in Germany. Next is, sir, compare a few points on communism versus socialism, how they differ. See again, Anand, I'll let you know. Socialism is a phenomena whereby state out to play the major role. Clear? State will organize the economic system in such a manner, the means of production in such a manner that resources do not remain confined to few sections, rather it gets distributed among all the sections of society. This is basically known as communism. Clear? When communism establishes in society and it continues to exist for several years, a time will come when resources will automatically get distributed among all the sections through state, and in the words of several thinkers, state would automatically wither away, will come to an end. Clear? And every section will be satisfied with the amount of resources they have, and it will result into a stateless society, a classless society, an ideal society, which would be the highest stage of socialism, and it is known as communism. So socialism and communism are interrelated to each other. Socialism is just a means and communism is the end. Clear? In fact, communism is the highest stage of socialism. But practically speaking, no country has witnessed ideal communism. They have established socialism, but socialism could not attain its peak to achieve communism in any country. It's clear, Anand. Next is Parth. Sir, can we say that USSR under the regime of Joseph Stalin was a fascist state or a totalitarian state? Yeah. Joseph Stalin tried to establish or largely followed the fascist ideology, not fascism. Joseph Stalin was basically a hardcore dictator who wanted to move towards communism. Clear? So USSR was a pure socialist state, not fascist state. Socialist state means the state or commanded economy was followed, like 5-year plans was followed. So Sir Joseph Stalin was not fascist or fascist. Joseph Stalin was a clear-cut socialist leader, and through socialism he wanted to make Russia all-powerful country. Clear? So he was a dictator who followed socialist ideology. Clear? He may have turned out to be fascism, but at the time he was just a socialist leader. Clear? Sir, socialism idea opposes trade liberalization, globalization, yeah, because it follows state authority. So in today's era of rapid communication technology and globalization, WTO era, has socialism lost its relevancy? Anil Kumar Roy. Not completely, but obviously socialism is not the most popular ideology. In fact, much more popular ideology is capitalism. Clear? And that is why capitalism is followed in major countries of the world. Socialism has not lost its relevancy even at this time, but it is not as popular as capitalism. It cannot be denied that socialism prohibits the trade liberalization in WTO and globalized era, and therefore it is considered to be incompatible with present economic system. Clear? But at the same time, it has not lost its relevancy altogether. It is valid but not as popular as capitalism. It's clear? Market economy. Now, coming to the strategy written by Hitler in Mein Kampf. Clear? Just understand. Adolf Hitler in his autobiography made it clear that he strongly believes in the racial superiority of the Nordic race. So, Hitler supported Nordic race. Clear? He was of opinion that the most superior race at global level is the Nordic race, to which even Aryans belong. Clear? And he made it clear that he wants to establish an organically expanding empire exclusively of Nordic people, and this concept of establishing an organically expanding empire exclusively of Nordic people, this concept was highlighted by Hitler as Lebensraum. Clear? So he supported the idea of Lebensraum, that is organically expanding empire exclusively of Nordic race. Clear? So since he believed in this racial superiority of Nordic race, he was opposed to all other communities, including the Jewish community as well. Clear? And that is why he began to he made it clear that he will exterminate the Jewish member from German society. Clear? And this concept of ethnically segregating one country against another country, this concept is known as anti-Semitism. Clear? This concept of anti-Semitism became a distinctive feature of fascist ideology in Germany. But this was not the original feature of fascism. Fascism has only three features we had discussed. One more component was added, that is anti-Semitism, or rather opposition to Jewish community and other religious communities, and to support one ethnic community of Nordic race. Just because of this additional component being largely promoted by Nazi members, the fascist ideology in Germany came to be known as Nazism. Clear? Now this was the question asked earlier. Clear? And this question is, sir, what is the difference Hitler's Nazism and Mussolini's fascism? Madan, clear? It was basically because anti-Semitism was additional feature added in Germany against the Jewish community and other ethnic minorities, and this became a distinctive feature of German fascism, and therefore German fascism came to be known as Nazism. So it is fascism with one additional component of anti-Semitism. Clear? This was promoted in Germany. Clear? At the same time, clear, Hitler also made it clear that wherever there are sizable section of Nordic people, he will annex all those areas in Europe. Clear? And those areas highlighted by Hitler was, first of all, Austria, which has sizable people of Nordic race. Second major area was Sudeten land within Czechoslovakia, a new country created after First World War. And third was the city of Danzig, located in Eastern Europe or Poland. Clear? He wanted all these areas to be brought under the concept of Lebensraum, that is exclusively the empire of Nordic race. Clear? With all this philosophy, Hitler highlighted a strong approach towards Germany. Clear? Hitler was released from Bavaria jail in 1924, and he began to reestablish the Nazi party once again. Clear? He waited for his opportunity, and when in 1929 Great Economic Depression took place and even United States could not support Germany, at this time Hitler came to forefront and said the only option left for Germany is to tear apart the Treaty of Versailles, clause by clause. Germans was not having any option, and they began to support Hitler, and from here Nazi party started to acquire popularity. In 1932 election, Nazi party emerged to be the largest political party, and on behalf of this party, Hitler became the Chancellor of Germany. Clear? According to Weimar Constitution. As soon as he became Chancellor of Germany, the first thing that he did was he set the Parliament building only on fire. Clear? By setting the Parliament building on fire, he claimed that this act has been performed by the communists, and he started to persecute large number of communists along with Jewish members. This is known as German Holocaust, in which millions of Jews were persecuted along with communists, because fascism is totally opposed to communism. Clear? In fact, Hitler made clear in his autobiography that the greatest enemy of Germany would be the Red Army of Soviet Union, because communism and fascism are totally opposed to each other. Clear? He began to say, after some time only the president of Germany died, and Hitler combined the post of president Germany to emerge as dictator of Germany in 1934. Clear? After emerging as dictator of Germany in 1934, he began to adopt a very strong foreign policy. Clear? By adopting a strong foreign policy, he took Germany away from the League of Nations. So Germany left the League of Nations in 1935. In 1936, Hitler and Mussolini came together, and Hitler and Mussolini decided to show their collective strength at this time. And after taking Hitler and Mussolini together, even Japan joined this group, and this came to be known as Axis power under a pact signed known as Anti-Comintern Pact, as all these fascist powers were opposed to communism, that is anti-communism. All this resulted into rise of Hitler. Right about these developments. Clear? What is meant by usurp power? Usurp power means to acquire power forcefully, that is through military power. That is military coup, you can call C-O-U-P. Clear? It's military coup. Vishwajit. Madan, sir, Treaty of Versailles is responsible for the growth of Nazism? Yeah, Treaty of Versailles is largely responsible. That is why we have written it sowed the seeds for Second World War. Sir, how and why, sir, communism is ideal, but ideal not witnessed as you have mentioned, and socialism is initial step and communism is ultimate goal. Anand, clear? Why communism is ideal? Communism is ideal because obviously there's no discrimination and there's no resentment among the section. All people are satisfied with the resources they have, and they manage their own affairs like through communist system without any superstructure like state. So obviously it is people being supreme, people being sovereign, and nothing dominates over them. They are supreme in their own capacity. That is why communism is considered to be ideal in nature. Clear? And socialism initial step and communism is ultimate goal, because communism cannot be established directly. First of all, it has to go through socialism, when resources will be distributed as state, and then ultimately state will come to an end and communism will come into being. So obviously socialism is an means and communism is an end. It's clear, Anand? Clear? Right about these developments. Clear? Right. Hitler emphasized on the racial superiority. Hitler emphasized on the racial superiority of the Nordic race. Racial superiority of the Nordic race. And decided to establish an organically expanding empire known as Lebensraum. Clear? Lebensraum. Right. At the same time, Hitler was opposed to other ethnic and religious communities, which is termed as anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism. Clear? Right. In fact, such ethnic considerations became an additional component of fascism in Germany, that came to be known as Nazism. that came to be known as Nazism. 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 Clear? So fascist variant in Germany known as Nazism. Right, next. Hitler also made it clear that the greatest threat to Germany is from the Red Army of the Soviet Union, is from the Red Army of Soviet Union, Red Army of Soviet Union, as fascism and communism are are totally opposed to each other, are totally opposed to each other, 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 clear? Right. Right. Hitler also emphasized that he will annex the regions of Austria. He will annex the regions of Austria, Sudetenland within Czechoslovakia, Austria, Sudetenland within Czechoslovakia, and the city of Danzig in Poland, Eastern Europe, city of Danzig in Poland, having considerable number of Nordic people, 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 Nordic people. Clear? Change paragraph, right? Hitler was released in 1924. Hitler was released in 1924 and began to reorganize the Nazi party, began to reorganize Nazi party, reorganize Nazi party, reorganize Nazi party, Nazi party. Clear? Right. Right. Hitler emerged as a strong leader, when great economic depression took place, and he highlighted that only option left for Germany, is to tear apart the Treaty of Versailles, tear apart the Treaty of versus. Clear? Right, people began to support Hitler, no choice. People began to support Hitler. That led to the popularity of, that led to the popularity of the Nazi party, popularity of the Nazi party, which emerged as the largest political party, which emerged as the largest political party, largest political party in 1932. In 1932. Okay. Right. Consequently, Hitler became, consequently, Hitler became the Chancellor of Germany. Hitler became the Chancellor of Germany, and 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 the Parliament building was set on fire, and Parliament building was set on fire, for which the communist, for which the communist and the Jewish members were blamed, for which the communist and the Jewish members were blamed. Jewish members were blamed. Were blamed. Clear? Were blamed. Were blamed. Right. Hitler resorted to the persecution of, Hitler resorted to the persecution of the communist and the Jewish members. Communist and the Jewish members. Jewish members. Okay. Right, next. In 1934, the President of Germany died. In 1934, the President of Germany died, and Hitler combined the post of, the President and Chancellor. Hitler combined the post of President and Chancellor to emerge as dictator. To emerge as dictator. Okay. Right. In 1935, Germany walked away from the League of Nations, as Hitler began to pursue a strong foreign policy. Hitler began to pursue a strong foreign policy. Pursue a strong foreign policy. A strong foreign policy. Pursue a strong foreign policy. Strong foreign policy. Foreign policy. Clear? Right. Moreover, Hitler established alliance. Hitler established alliance with another fascist leader, Mussolini, and even and even Japan. Even Japan. Clear? Right. All the three countries, Germany, Italy, and Japan, all the three countries concluded, all the three countries concluded the Anti-Comintern Pact, concluded the Anti-Communist Pact, fascism totally being opposed to communism, concluded Anti-Comintern Pact in 1936. Anti-Comintern Pact in 1936, and came to be collectively known as, the Axis powers. Rome, Berlin, Tokyo Axis came to be collectively known as the Axis powers. Collectively known as the Axis powers. That is Germany, Italy, and Japan. Rome, Berlin, Tokyo Axis powers. Change paragraph. Clear? Right. By pursuing a strong foreign policy, Hitler and Mussolini together intervened in the Spanish Civil War. Intervened in the Spanish Civil War. Now, what was this war? And that showed the collective strength of Hitler and Mussolini. We'll just understand. Clear? As we had discussed, Spain has always been very strategic in nature, not far away from African continent. Clear? In 1931, general elections took place in Spain and a democratically elected government was formed in Spain. Clear? However, after some time, this democratic government in Spain began to show inclination towards communist ideology. Clear? Since fascism and communism are antithesis to each other. Clear? The tilt towards communist philosophy was not acceptable to both Hitler and Mussolini, and both decided to show their collective strength in Spain. Clear? They began to support military general in Spain known as General Franco. Clear? And with support of Mussolini and Hitler, General Franco began to attack the democratically elected government in Spain, and that led to an internal problem known as Spanish Civil War. This Spanish Civil War took place in 1936, and with support of Hitler and Mussolini, the General Franco was able to defeat the democratic government, and he emerged to be dictator of Spain. Clear? At this time, the democratic government could have been saved by European powers like Britain and France. Clear? But rather than opposing Hitler and Mussolini, Britain and France followed the policy of appeasement. Why they wanted to follow the policy of appeasement? Because they wanted to reconcile Hitler so that Germany is able to pay the indemnity amount due to France and Belgium. Clear? Just because of this, the European powers played, or rather adopted a policy of appeasement, and they failed to appease Hitler finally. Clear? So Spanish Civil War showed the collective strength of Hitler and Mussolini. At the same time, the victory of Hitler and Mussolini against the democratic government and even against European powers. That is why it is largely accepted that Spanish Civil War proved to be the dress rehearsal for the Second World War. And that is why again it is reinforced by scholars that Second World War started from here only, that is from 1937 onwards. Clear? This is Spanish Civil War that took place in 1936. Clear? Right? Clear? Right? Right. In 1931, 31, general elections took place, right, dating a Spanish Civil War, 1936. In 1931, general elections took place in Spain. General elections took place in Spain. Elections took place in Spain. In Spain, that led to the establishment of a democratic government, that led to the establishment of a democratic government, establishment of a democratic government, establishment of a democratic government, right? However, this government began to show, however, this government began to show inclination, this government began to show inclination, towards communist philosophy, which was not acceptable, to Hitler and Mussolini. They were fascist leaders, which was not acceptable to Hitler and Mussolini. Hitler and Mussolini. Clear? Right. Consequently, the fascist leaders began to support General Franco. The fascist leaders began to support General Franco, against the democratic government, Clear? Right. It led to serious internal crisis. In form of the Spanish Civil War, in 1936. Spanish Civil War in 1936. Clear? 1936. Right. Right. During this war, Britain and France did not support the democratic government in Spain. As they followed the policy of appeasement, towards Hitler, Clear? Right. In Spanish Civil War, the democratic government came to an end, and General Franco emerged as dictator. Okay? Right. It was the first collective victory. It was the first collective victory of Hitler and Mussolini. It was the first collective victory of Hitler and Mussolini. 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 Hitler and Mussolini. Mussolini. And therefore, Spanish Civil War is considered to be Spanish Civil War is considered to be the dress rehearsal for the Second World War. Dress rehearsal for the Second World War. Dress rehearsal for the Second World War. Clear? Change paragraph. Clear? Right. Hitler continued with his aggressive policy and annexed Austria. He made clear in his autobiography only Austria, Sudetenland and Danzig. He annexed Austria in 1938. Having Nordic people, 1938, and demanded the surrender of Sudetenland, within Czechoslovakia. Sudetenland within Czechoslovakia. Within Czechoslovakia. Having considerable number of Nordic people. Considerable number of Nordic people. Clear? Right. In order to, because it was to be protected by European powers who created Czechoslovakia, in order to decide this issue, European powers convened Munich Conference. European powers convened Munich Conference in 1938. Munich Conference in 1938. Do understand this conference is very important. Munich Conference in 1938. It indicates the height of appeasement towards Hitler. Clear? First of all, when this Munich Conference was convened in 1988, the European powers did not invite any leader of Czechoslovakia whose fate was to be decided. At the same time, the European powers did not invite one leader who had huge stake in Balkan region or Czechoslovakia, and he was none other than the Soviet President Joseph Stalin. Clear? So Stalin was also not invited because European powers knew Stalin will never allow the surrender of Sudetenland to Hitler at this time. Clear? So both Stalin and the representative of Czechoslovakia were bypassed in Munich Conference. That makes it clear that European powers already made up their mind to surrender Sudetenland, and that is why Munich Conference is considered to be the height of appeasement towards Adolf Hitler. Clear? Right. In Munich Conference, European powers did not invite any leader of Czechoslovakia did not invite any leader of Czechoslovakia and the Soviet president Stalin. From here only Stalin opened his own front. And Soviet leader Stalin. Clear? Right. In fact, Munich conference marked the height of appeasement. Munich conference marked the height of appeasement. Munich conference marked the height of appeasement, and Sudetenland was peacefully surrendered. Sudetenland was peacefully surrendered to Hitler. Clear? Surrendered to Hitler. Right. From here, Stalin decided to deal with fascism separately. Clear? Separately. Right. Moreover, Hitler and Stalin concluded non-aggression pact. Whereby the two leaders concluded non-aggression pact in 1939, whereby the two leaders decided not to attack each other. For 10 years. Now you will just understand, you will be wondering, when fascism and communism are opposed to each other and Hitler declared Red Army to be the biggest army, how come this non-aggression pact? Just because that Stalin was not invited in Munich conference, nor Stalin wanted to give a free hand to Hitler to destroy all the Western European powers like Britain, France. So it was a kind of revengeful measure. Hitler capitalized on the sentiments of Stalin, and Hitler also wanted to get relief from the US Soviet Union so that he may focus more on other European powers. That is why Stalin and Hitler entered into a temporary arrangement of 10 years, whereby both leaders decided at least not to attack each other for 10 years. This was a big relief for Hitler to focus more on Western European countries. Stalin accepted the offer because Stalin also wanted to teach a lesson to European powers, because they did not invite Stalin in Munich conference. Clear? This was in 1939. Right. Next, Hitler even demanded the surrender. Surrender of Danzig in Poland. By European powers. Clear? Right. By this time, European powers like Britain and France, realized that the policy of appeasement has failed. And they decided to resist Hitler. Clear? Right. Hitler attacked Poland on 1st of September 1939. Hitler attacked Poland on 1st of September 1939, which was resisted by Britain and France, which was resisted by Britain and France, which marked the beginning of the Second World War, which marked the beginning of the Second World War. 1939. So in real sense, it started in 1939. So these were all developments in interwar years in Germany, the most powerful fascist country. Clear? So these were all developments in Germany. So we had discussed about developments in interwar years in Italy and Germany. Now we'll discuss about developments in another fascist power in interwar years, that is Japan. Clear? Just understand about developments related to Japan. Before this, I'll take few questions. Clear? One question is from Subhashri. Clear? Sir, though the ideas and ideologies of Adolf Hitler indirectly or directly provoked the world to get into a devastating war like the Second World War, why he was so popular that people supported him? Clear? People supported him out of anxiety, because as I'd been emphasizing, people had no choice. Clear? Because obviously there were pressure on Germany to pay indemnity amount, and Germany could not pay indemnity amount, so only option was to get rid of Treaty of Versailles, and only a powerful leader could get Germany rid of Treaty of Versailles, and therefore response was given by Adolf Hitler. Is it due to charismatic personality or speaking the lines of aggrieved people of Germany? Yeah, obviously charismatic personality of Hitler was also a major factor. He was a great orator also, and at the same time he was a great manipulator as well. Clear? No doubt. He controlled the media houses also all the time, and only displayed those messages which he wanted to be displayed among the masses, that led to the change in the mindset and trust in the capacity of Hitler. Clear? So Hitler was basically the only option left by the Germans, and Hitler capitalized on this anxiety very well by his charismatic personality, by manipulation, and by controlling even the media houses. No doubt. Clear? Next is that clear, Shubhashri? Please revert back. Next question is from Subrata Beragya Nadia. Sir, please tell us what will be the ideal study material for world history optional. Clear? World history optional, you are asking. Clear? See, for optional, I'll let you know. Clear? History optional, you have to refer to some major sources, because whatever we are discussing general studies, you have to complete 30% more than that. Clear? In fact, I'll give you my own material. I can give you my own material also, all related to optional, related to world history optional. Don't worry about it. Clear? So be in contact. I'll help you for optional separately. Clear? General studies and optional are two different things. Whatever we are covering, obviously you have to cover in optional, but more than this, you have to go at 30% more. Clear? So if you want to get into contact with optional, just let me know. I'll help you separately with related to history optional. In fact, I can give you my own material also related to optional. Is clear? Subrata Beragya Nadia. Clear? Okay, fine. Okay, just be in contact with me. I'll help you in history optional. Clear? Okay, so these were the major developments in Germany between two world wars. Now coming to developments in Japan between two world wars. Just understand, Japan emerged to be a very aggressive and militarized country in the beginning of 20th century, even defeated Russia in 1905. Japan also participated in the First World War along with allied powers, just because Japan wanted to annex large parts of China which was under German occupation. So in the First World War, Japan was against Germany, because Japan wanted to extend towards China which was under German control. But after First World War, Japan was not properly rewarded by allied powers or the victorious powers. This affected the pride of Japanese people, and that also marked the beginning of aggressive nationalism in Japan, known as fascist ideology in Japan. Japan began to follow extreme fascist ideology, and by following fascist ideology, it began to affect the sense of nationalism in all the major countries. Japan wanted to expand towards China in interwar years. Clear? And in 1931, Japan attacked China and conquered the northern province of China known as Manchuria in 1931. China opposed this annexation and appealed to the League of Nations for action against Japan. Clear? But before any action could be taken against Japan, Japan walked away from the League of Nations in 1931. In fact, Japan became the first country to walk away from League of Nations, and Italy was the last country to walk away from League of Nations in 1937, and in between, Germany left League of Nations in 1935. Clear? So Japan walked away from League of Nations in 1931. Clear? At the same time, Japan began to come closer to fascist leader Hitler, and with fascist leader, Japan concluded Anti-Comintern Pact in 1936, which was joined by Italy also, leading to the establishment of Axis power. With support of this Axis power, with support of Mussolini, Hitler, Japan declared full-fledged war against China in 1937. That is why it is also said that Second World War started in 1937 itself, because full-fledged attack was led by Japan on China. Why China was being attacked continuously by Japan? Because of internal problems in China, as civil war was going on in China. We'll discuss that separately in Chinese history. Clear? So this was attack of Japan on Chinese territory full-fledgedly in 1937, and Japan emerged to be a huge aggressive power in interwar years. Clear? These were developments related to Japan. Clear? Right, next, right, during interwar years, during interwar years, during interwar years, Japan, interwar years, Japan emerged to be an aggressive power. Japan emerged to be an aggressive power, as it was not properly rewarded, by the Allied powers, during the Paris Peace Conference. Clear? Peace Conference. Right. Japan began to promote ultra-nationalism or fascism. Japan began to promote ultra-nationalism or fascism. Ultra-nationalism or fascism. Clear? Right. Japan wanted to extend its control. Towards China. Control towards China. And in 1931, Japan annexed. The large Chinese province. Japan annexed the large Chinese province of Manchuria. Clear? Manchuria. Right. China appealed to the League of Nations. But Japan easily walked away. From the global body. So Japan was the first one, followed by Germany, and then finally Italy. League of Nations. Clear? change paragraph, right? In 1936, Japan concluded, in 1936, Japan concluded the Anti-Comintern Pact. Japan concluded the Anti-Comintern Pact with Germany. Anti-Comintern Pact with Germany, which boosted the confidence, of Japan. Boosted the confidence of Japan. Confidence of Japan. Which boosted the confidence of Japan. Japan, clear? Like Japan declared full-fledged war against China. Japan declared full-fledged war against China in 1937. War against China in 1937. 1937. That resulted into a serious crisis in Asian continent. Serious crisis in Asian continent. Therefore, it is largely accepted that Second World War started in 1937 itself, even though it formally starts with Hitler's aggression against Poland. Clear? So, major conflict. Clear? So, these were major developments in inter-war years among three Axis powers, that is Germany, Italy and Japan. Clear? Now, Second World War started in 1939 when Hitler attacked Poland on 1st of September, which was retaliated by Britain and France, and that marked the beginning of Second World War. Now, we'll discuss the course of Second World War, the major dynamics of Second World War, major battles of Second World War that went on from 1939 till 1945. So, this were all the major factors that led to Second World War in 1939 that continued for 6 years. Clear? So, we'll discuss. So, if factors are asked related to Second World War, you will mention it was largely because of race for imperialism and colonialism still at this point of time. It was also because of the failure of collective security by League of Nations. It was also because of the Treaty of Versailles. It was largely because of rise of fascism, and fascism being promoted by Mussolini, Hitler and Japan. Clear? And you have to mention all these developments in Italy and Germany and Japan in interwar years. All these were factors that led to Second World War in 1939. Now we'll discuss the course of the Second World War from 1939 to 1945. So write the heading as the course of the Second World War. The course of the Second World War. Write the period also 1939 to 1945. The course of the Second World War. It's clear. Now, next question is, sir, when any country leaves the League of Nations, why League does not take any legal action against the country? Because obvious, Subrata, because League of Nations was not a binding organization. That was the biggest problem. That is why we said it was a toothless organization. It was not a compulsory organization. It was not a binding organization. So, League of Nations could not stop even the member countries walking away from its membership. That is why League of Nations could not ensure collective security. So, all the members voluntarily walked away from the League of Nations, and because League of Nations was not binding in nature. It's clear, Subrata. It's fine. See, Subrata, Bairagya, Nadia, who was asking on World History Optional, just be in touch with me. Clear. Take my number. I just help you out separately related to History Optional. 971-8058-789. It's clear, Subrata? Just revert back. Because I cannot discuss optional strategy here with GS batch, but I'll let you know separately how to go about with optional and how can I assist you in History Optional. It's clear. Okay. So these were the, now we'll discuss about the course of the Second World War from 1939 to 1945. I hope you have written the heading, the course of Second World War, 1939 to 1945. Clear? Now we'll start with the course of Second World War after the break. Clear? It's already 1 o'clock. We'll have a break for 1 hour. We'll start sharply at 2 o'clock. Clear? And we'll continue from 2 to 4. Clear? So we'll start with the course of Second World War after the break. Clear? Thank you.